Hi Neha. Hello everyone. Hi Apurva. Can I add you? Yes.
Hi, Raina.
Hi Apurva. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Very well.
All excited?
Yes, very excited. This is actually my first Instagram live.
Oh,
So I'm
really? Okay.
yeah.
Great. So, shall we start or you want
Yeah.
to wait? Yeah?
No, we can yeah.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a session of Page Turners with rainasinghwijain. Raina is from Rajasthan but lived all her life in Tuticorin, a small town in Tamil Nadu. After a 2-year work experience with Google India, she moved on to pursue her post-graduation at the Manchester Business School. Post which she joined a family business, Ramesh Flowers Private Limited. She is currently responsible for the India sales and runs the e-commerce wing of the company, the brand Meva. Today, let's discuss and hear about her recent book called The Golden Bird 2.0 and what our future holds for us. So, over to you.
Thanks Apurva. So I'm just going to click the cross button over here. Okay. Great. So hello everyone. To begin with, I would like to thank Apurva for inviting me to this Yflo FICCI Hyderabad session. And thank you Apurva for the wonderful introduction. I hope all of you have been doing well during these very, very uncertain times. Um, it's not, I mean, I just hope that we come out of this whole pandemic kind of a situation very, very soon. So before we begin this session, I would like to tell you a little bit more of what I do. As Apurva mentioned, I run the Maiva brand that was created in 2017 for the Gala Group, Germany, in India. We are based out of Bangalore. Uh, what Maiva does is the whole brand, the concept of the brand came up to introduce international gifting standards to bring that in India and and the products define celebrations, like everything that we create is to celebrate all the good times that we have in our lives. And we specialize in unique floral arrangements, home fragrance products such as scented candles, reed diffusers, incense sticks, essential oils, etc. And we also take a lot of custom orders and stuff, so you can check us out on www.themyavastore.com. Actually, these are some of the products that we make. So now, just moving on, taking a deep dive into into my new assignment, I would call it. I mean, my book. Having had the opportunity to shift to the US when I was just 14 years old, I remember denying every such opportunity because I never wanted to leave India. I always wanted to be connected to my roots somehow and contribute in some way to the country. And now we know this current situation that we are facing with respect to the pandemic. And the current global scenario has kind of brought India to a juncture where it can forge ahead to become the factory for the world. But before we get carried away by this Herculean ambition, we must identify and address the numerous gaps that we have in the system. So, in corporate parlance, the real question that we need to ask ourselves is that, are we really team players? I mean, this is a very, very important question that which will define our contribution to this mammoth vision. Our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, has directed the nation towards a target of making India self-reliant. And for that, he launched the Aatmanirbharbharat Abhiyan, which I'm sure all of you have heard multiple times in the last few weeks, months, across all news channels, newspapers, etc. So many webinars also happening on this. So he has invited the citizens of India to look through his eyes and aspired the nation to emerge as an advanced and progressive global trade partner with a significant place with a significant place in the global supply chain. So he has a vision of a $5 trillion economy that he wants India to be by 2024. And that is going to be only possible when every citizen of the country shoulders responsibility for this dream. So one day during this lockdown, sometime in March this year, um, I was in conversation with my father, and we realized that I do have my bit to contribute to this journey of making India self-reliant. Thus, I happened to take some time out and to pen down some of the overarching thoughts that have been bothering me for a very long time now. And so began my journey as an author. And I have written the book, The Golden Bird, that's my book, 2.0, Resurgence of India, which through and through talks about a transformation, not only to become self-reliant, but to become a wealthy and a prosperous country all over again. So India, in its ancient times, used to be called Sone ki Chidiya, the golden bird, because of the abundance of natural resources we had as a country. There was a time when India and China together formed the major composition of the world's economy, and then things changed. So as part of my entrepreneurial journey in the past 12 years, I have worked on multiple projects. I've set up teams, developed new product lines, procured materials from countries like China. I've worked a lot with Chinese vendors. I've been a part of hardcore marketing activities. And I have been on the forefront to assess and analyze the gaps that businesses face in order to prosper. Uh, but I will give a disclaimer over here. We have several diverse industries in India. I may not be able to represent all of them, but I know that I do represent quite a few of them. So in this session today, I really want to give a sense of where we really come from, which is just the first part of my book. I want all my viewers today to create this new space within yourselves where you gain knowledge about our past, and thus it's so, and when you do that, it becomes easier to embark on the journey that we have ahead of us. So the genre of my book does hone from economics and political science, but it has been my endeavor to keep the language very, very simple and the concepts absolutely comprehensible. We will do some little bit of book reading and then move to taking some questions if you have any. I'm going to try my best to make this session interesting for you. So before we begin, on a lighter note, I would like to read excerpts from my opening poem before we get into the core of the session. This will also help me convey my message in a better way. So I have begun and ended the book with two poems that I've written, and I'm just going to read a few lines. The world's largest democracy, plagued by glaring hypocrisy, plundered of all our riches and prosperity, maybe that was India's destiny. Once the fabled golden bird, India was the cynosure of the world. But we lost our fame in times that came. Helpless then, we now need to ace our game. The prodigious time has come again, good fortunes we can regain, to capture once more what we had lost, no matter the hurdles or the cost. Let's take a leaf from a national tree, a heritage the world ought to see. Its immortal soul and relentless growth. It's time for us to metamorphose. So the question that really arises is that what contribution can you and I make to accomplish this vision? What difference can we bring about being just citizens of this country? I wish we had a simple formula, but unfortunately, the journey is going to be very, very tough. Let me begin by asking one question here. How interested are we as citizens of this country to see India become the golden bird again? I'm pretty sure that we would score 100 on 100. But then this leads me to my next question. How interested are we to contribute to achieving this mammoth vision? So though our ambitions are high up there, the real challenge lies in execution and bringing about the real change by doing our own bit. And today, since we have limited time today, I will touch upon just 3 to 4. My book talks about a lot of things. There are a lot of topics, but I'm gonna break it down to 3 to 4 interesting topics, and I hope it somewhere resonates with you. The first being us getting a sense of where we really come from. It's really important for us to know where do we really belong. So Lord Macaulay, who was the former British secretary, he gave an address to the British Parliament on the 2nd of February 1835. And this is what he had to say. I will read this out to you. I have traveled across the length and breadth of India, and I have not seen one person who is a beggar, who is a thief. Such wealth I have seen in this country, such high moral values, people of such caliber, that I do not think we would ever conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is her spiritual and cultural heritage. And therefore, I propose that we replace her old and ancient education system, her culture, for if the Indians think that all that is foreign and English is good and greater than their own, they will lose their self-esteem, their native culture, and they will become what we want them, a truly dominated nation. I would like to read a few more lines from the first chapter of my book, India, the Golden Bird, to set a little more context on the same subject. So, these lines will explain to you in real terms where we really come from, and I truly believe every Indian needs to know this, that what was our ancient history, and some few facts are not even too ancient. In fact, when it comes to matters of economics, Indian civilization has more than texts to offer, for it built some of the most productive and prosperous societies in ancient history. This is best observed with reference to the work of famed economic historian Angus Madison, who painstakingly estimated economic metrics for bygone eras. According to his research, India possessed the largest economy in the world for over 1,000 years, from 1 to 1000 AD. During this time, it accounted for around 28% of the world's GDP, which means we accounted for more than a quarter of the world's GDP. While after 1000 AD, China did outgrow India, and that's when actually the rivalry began between the countries. The two remained neck and neck, and together accounted for more than half the world's share of output for a better part of the millennium. India even pulled ahead on certain occasions, as in the year 1700 AD, where it recorded an annual income that was greater than the entire British treasury at that time. In fact, at its peak in the early part of the 18th century, India represented around 25% of the world's total industrial output. And just a few more lines on the same subject. As a matter of fact, a recent study by a renowned economist, and guys, brace yourselves when you listen to this, because this was one of the most important lines of the book. As a matter of fact, a recent study by a renowned economist concluded from over 2 centuries of data on trade that over the course of the period from 1765 to 1938, I repeat that, 1765 to 1938, Britain drained wealth from India worth a staggering 45 trillion US dollars. And this is almost 17 times the annual GDP of the UK today. So we were drained of $45 trillion and we are now working towards making a $5 trillion economy. So we really, really need to get our facts right and understand where we truly come from. And once we have this in context, and once, I'm sorry, the questions just distracted me. I think we'll take the questions as soon as I'm done. Once we have this in context, the next question that arises is that how can we even begin the journey to get there? So one name or word that all of us have been hearing in the past few months over and over again is China. From the spread of the virus, COVID-19, to the boycott of apps, to India getting very serious about becoming self-reliant, that was to move away from dependencies that we have on China. It's crucial to understand our parallel journeys. So let's take a look at a little bit of their history. So in 1911, they abolished their feudal monarchy. And that's when the People's Republic of China was born. And since around 1949, they just saw a sharp upward turn in the growth in every way. And that growth continues even until today. So as a leader, Mao Zedong, he was known for his Marxist-Leninist ideologies and the kind of military strategies that he had and his political policies. That's what came to be known as Maoism, which I'm sure many of you must have definitely read about. So he suddenly wanted to, post 1949, he wanted to do this, boost industrialization in China. So he launches this program called the Great Leap Forward. It's a campaign. It was not a program, sorry, it was a campaign. So what his government attempted to do was they wanted to boost industrialization and they diverted all farmers into being laborers for small scale industries. You know what was the result? It was an agricultural disaster and one of the darkest tragedies in world history. Between 1958 and 1962, 30 million Chinese people starved to death. So now, and you know how it works over there. So officials never really reported the real reason for the drought that led to millions of these starvation deaths, and they just blamed it on the weather and decline in the agricultural produce, etc. So after this entire socio-economic calamity of the Great Leap Forward, many of Mao's colleagues, they again wanted to now boost and, do create programs to uplift the economy and stuff. So however, he feared that, because my Great Leap Forward went really bad, what if people no more share my communist vision, or what if you destabilize my rule? So in order to protect the principles of the Maoist communism and maintain its ideological primacy, he launched another major socio-economical movement, and that was called the Cultural Revolution. And what he did as part of this was he shut schools, he shut universities, he diverted all the youth into groups called the Red Guards, and their main responsibility was to attack all things traditional and bourgeoisie. However, the movement spiraled out of control and many intellectuals were abused and even killed. And after the death of Mao Zedong in 1976, and a year later, the Cultural Revolution also ended, and Deng Xiaoping picked up the baton of leadership. He came up, and he was the one who really brought in the changes. So he launched something called the Poluan Panzeng, which means eliminating chaos and returning to normal. So that was his prime vision, that I need to fix things now. So along with the supporters, he brought changes to the Chinese constitution. He rehabilitated several people who had been persecuted by the Maoist regime and called for a shift of focus from a continuous class struggle to economic reconstruction and modernization. So Deng Xiaoping pioneered China's evolution from a socialist economy to a mixed one. His vision led him to open doors of the country to globalization. He brought in colossal changes in uh, on the political front, legal front, social, economic, on all fronts. And this globalization categorically influenced the economy of China. It was the beginning of a new era for them. And today there are news articles like we can read that talking about China even superseding even the US and becoming the world's largest economy. So there are a lot of factors that determine their success, which I will not be able to cover in today's session. But for those of you who are interested to learn more, you must read The Golden Bird 2.0. So China has been through the journey of several disasters and reached wherever they are today. And India also, in the meantime, post 1947, was battling with its own issues. So we had preceding India's independence and the liberation of China, both emergent nations were amongst the most uneven societies in the world. Unemployment figures were at their worst. Infrastructure pertaining to health and education was sparse and often you can say non-existent in majority part of the population. And extremely low levels of per capita output and far-flung poverty formed the economic backdrop in each case. Moreover, both countries were just beginning to recover from devastating events. So for India, it was they had to recoup from the setbacks of the partition that happened in 1947, and China had to regain from what it lost during an entire decade of continual warfare. So it was around it was in 1950 when India and China both began to rebuild their economies. The former achieved its independence from the British rule in 1947. It was led by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and the latter's liberation came in 1949 and was led by Mao Zedong that we just spoke about. So what really happened here was over the course of 50s, the 1950s and the 1960s, both countries had to begin channelizing their efforts towards recovery and rehabilitation. So it was in this period that both the countries together launched their first 5-year plan for economic development. And broadly, there were certainly differences in the plan, but moreover, they came from the same protectionist strategy. What was the idea? The idea was to restrict the threat of foreign competition and you invest in the growth of the domestic industry. So both countries had a very similar vision. While the two economies grew throughout their first decade of freedom, the 1960s proved to be a difficult time for both the nations. So China saw its growth thwarted early on in the decade with the disasters associated with its Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, which we just spoke about, whereas India witnessed the death of two prime ministers, one after the other. So one was Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and the other was Gulzari Lal Nanda. And this happened in quick succession. We had two wars in the period. We had multiple failed crops due to the 1965 famine. So a burning question about this history is, when and why did the balance shift? At what point did China's economy overtake India, and at what speed and at what level and why? And what were the factors that contributed to it? So there are several milestones and events that took place in this period that pushed China way ahead of India. I will not be able to cover them today due to time restrictions. However, I can tell you in a nutshell that it was surely a result of stable government policies, focus on human development, especially focusing on the Human Development Index, and a strong public will. Now that we have context, let's touch upon a takeaway from my book. Just one. I mean, there are many takeaways, but I'll talk about just one, which I feel is one of the most important takeaways of the book. I have specifically highlighted this fact that we as citizens of this country have to get out of our own way. We have to bring a change in our mindsets. But bringing a change of this kind seems almost impossible. Like somebody can't come and tell India 1.3 billion people, listen, all of you think in a certain way, like the mindset needs to change. That's something which it's not possible. So is it possible to at least fine tune it and make it, at least push it towards a positive? So because there is a lot to do with the mindset, which is very directly linked to the growth of this country. So I want to read a few lines from my book, The Quantum Jump, Chapter 8, Quantum Jump, The Voice for Change, Changing the Indian Mindset. Okay. Yeah. So as Indians, we are very familiar with the phrases chalta hai and jugaad. These colloquial terms typify the laid-back attitude associated with us. This mindset translates to practices of compromise, complaisance, taking shortcuts, and finding cheap alternatives, all of which are prevalent in our daily lives. From breaking, I will skip that. And so for generations, our tendency to accept mediocrity and short circuit protocol has been one of the most hardwired deterrents to our growth. So these traits, I have to specify on this that these traits are not innate characteristics of Indians. It's not. It's just more of a cultural bad habit that we have developed owing to the chaotic nature of our society and the difficult poverty stricken and unorganized economy that we have had to navigate over a period of all these years. So Indians are not condemned to always repeat this habit and hence must shed this attitude of chalta hai. But at the same time, when you talk about jugaad, all of us have it within us. We do understand that, and usually it's always shown on the negative side that Indians are very jugaad. So for me, I think it's a very good thing. So why can't we channelize this inborn quick fixer trait positively? If we think of ourselves as professionals in this technique, we can use it in numerous efficient ways to bolster our growth. The Jugadu intelligence makes Indians unique innovators, and if used in the right capacity, so it can act as an impetus for our growth. So many manufacturing firms have actually succeeded by using low cost, and I'm talking about Indian manufacturing firms, which have actually succeeded by using low cost process engineering to lower their costs. And most of these processes, let me tell you, happen through Jugaad. So also on the subject of mindsets, Indians are massively attracted to tax holidays, grants, subsidies, freebies, a habit that kind of needs to be broken. We must shift our focus to how we can contribute. Then more than taking, what can we give? What can our contribution be, and work towards collective gain. So, and even if 75% of the 1.3 billion Indians can align in our attitude towards hard work and truth, nothing can stop India from leading the world in trade. This was the most basic and the most important takeaway I have highlighted in the book. However, as we delve deeper into the subject, there is something for everyone in my book. From entrepreneurs to government leaders, or maybe just citizens of the country. If you're someone who is looking to begin a new business, I really recommend that you read this book. There is an impending necessity to understand the importance of multiple factors. It can be ease of doing business, education reforms, policy reforms, importance of intellectual property rights, communication design, process engineering, and also, I mean, to even understand the true meaning of Aatmanirbharta. I mean, though it's self-reliant, but there are a lot of factors over here, because when we say Aatmanirbharta, it does not mean that we shut our doors completely, we boycott everything, and everything we will make and we will sell. So there is a lot of meaning. That's a lot to understand for us, and what does this Aatmanirbhar Bharat really mean? And the book, so I really urge you guys to pick up your copy. It's available on Amazon.in. The Kindle version is absolutely free if you have the Kindle subscription. And I do have the audiobook version coming up shortly as well. And I really hope that I was able to do justice to this time that was given to me today. And we can now move towards the questions. I will actually take Apurva back. I'm just waiting for her message. And then we can do. I hope you have some good questions for me. I'd be more than happy to take them. Is Apurva there? Okay, there she is. There she is.
Hey.
Hi.
That was very interesting. I think we could go on and on. There's so much to it to hear, and there's so much to our history, I would say. So we have a few questions. One is, what do you think hinders India's development the most? Author's perspective.
Apurva, I'm kind of not able to hear you. 1 second.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think this should be better. Yeah.
What do you think hinders India's development the most? Author's perspective.
Oh my God, there are so many factors. And actually my book is all about this. The most important one is what I spoke about is our own. So we have this tendency to, and it's maybe not only Indians, it's probably a global tendency, but we try to put everything on the government. Government is not doing this, government is not doing that, everything good. We don't look at what is our contribution. I mean, like when we talk about corruption, for example, we say India is so corrupt, there's so much of corruption. I mean, like, and sometimes we find ourselves only being a part of it. And this is prevalent in a very, very large level. So for us to really put, and I'm not saying the government needs to do a lot of things, but it needs to be, the entire ecosystem needs to be in sync. Everybody needs to contribute. So that's one of the biggest hindrances. And apart from that, there are a few more, but I mean, that will take a lot of time. So I think let's move to the next question.
As an author, while researching such a vast topic, did you feel low reeling how much work needs to be done in this country?
Yeah, a little bit, yes. Honestly, when I started writing, I was very motivated. I said, this whole Aatmanirbhar Bharat thing is happening on TV. I think because I come from a business background, so that was my mindset. But when I started reading, and I really felt low when I was doing the comparisons between India and China, and my book actually has a lot of illustrations and graphs. And while making that, I was like, oh my God, like, where have we lost all these years, and why? I mean, so yeah.
All right. How is the research for such real life happenings different from that of writing a fictitious novel?
So I have never written a fiction, so I will not be able to answer that. So this was my first book, and the first book is a non-fiction, so I have no idea how different this is with respect to fiction.
Can nationalized campaigns like Make in India have an impact on ties between countries?
Absolutely. And my book is all about that. So make in India, be vocal for local. Definitely. This is something I think we're moving in a very, very good direction. And this is the biggest motivating factor that this is the time. I said this during the launch of my book. India is currently at its peak with its
Yeah.
younger citizens below the age of 19. And we are the demographic dividend. So in a few years, uh, mm, when these 19-year-olds and below come to their work, when they start working, I mean, that's why make in India is very important today, because we set the foundation for them, because at that point in time India would have become the most populated country in the world,
Right.
beating China.
Yeah. Economical or political situations, which will go further in helping India achieve prosperity, or they go hand in hand?
They definitely go hand in hand. Definitely go hand in hand. Like there are no two ways about it. It has to be it. Everybody. So I was very during as part of my research, I was very impressed with the work done by Niti Aayog, which is our ex-planning commission, which was set up by our Honorable Prime Minister. And so it is very nice. So they do the planning. And the people who head Niti Aayog are some good economists, people who have really studied India in the past. So you can already see that merge happening. And on the advisory board also, to the government, we have some very good economists. So it has to go hand in hand for sure.
During your research, which country's growth were you very impressed with? And who can India draw inspiration from?
I hate to say this, but I was very impressed with the growth. But I can tell you one thing, that I think out of all the countries, the country which is genuinely like really showed remarkable improvements would be South Korea. South Korea has
Yeah.
done very well. China has worked a lot under the shadows, a lot of malpractices kind of a thing. So yeah, they have come very far, but after doing a lot of, like, whether it's their counterfeit culture or whatever. So, but overall, I was very impressed with South Korea, I would say.
Like, why South Korea? Can you like expand a little bit?
A lot of things about them, like whether it's their policies, whether if you even look at, like, I was reading about them when our national education policy came out, for example. And I mean, the kind of reforms they have, their education system itself is like, if you should just read about it, and it's like next level. So, and they have, and like, for example, vocational training and stuff like that, like how they inculcated it at a very young age. And skill development is so crucial. It's so crucial. And I'm very happy that as part of our NEP that was launched early this year,
Yeah,
we do have some focus on
true.
vocational. So that's a good thing. But it's a very good example to learn from South Korea. Yeah.
Post COVID, would this book be different as we may be years behind again in development phase?
So, wow, that's a good question. So, for us to achieve this is going to take a very long time. I mean, like, we are talking about a quantum leap, taking a quantum leap, doing the quantum jump. We want a sudden transformation. The honest truth is it's not going to happen. It's going to be very tough. So, I'm sure my book is here to stay for some time, even post COVID, and I hope it inspires the youth of this country in the coming years to, because I'm sure this is going to take some time for
Right.
us to even get where we want. Yeah.
So we have one question. What does the author think about adding critical thinking and data analytics as important subjects for the curriculum for younger students?
Very important. So, I mean, the other day on TV, I was at home and I was watching this ad. It was some, I don't know, White Hat Academy or something, I'm not sure, where they say, children, come and learn coding.
Hmm.
Start. And I saw that ad and I was like, wow, this is something that needs to, it is very important because it's now
Yeah,
or never. So it's like we have to do it now. So inculcating all of these things in the curriculum and now the pandemic, whether we like it or not, has kind of pushed us into the digital sphere. Children are now already doing classes, though we are yet to see the effectiveness of this entire thing that's happened. But I think it's very crucial. All of this, even a little bit of like artificial intelligence and everything, children. And
yeah,
I have a son who is like 17 months old, and sometimes he shocks me with the kind of things he does. So children today are also very, very smart. So I think for them,
absolutely.
they really need they need to get a bit of all of this in their curriculum for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so the last question is, how should India propose to resolve the IPR challenges that the pandemic presents without disturbing the ethos of free trade?
Are you referring to IPR,
Yes.
the intellectual property rights?
Yeah.
Okay. So the topic of my chapter, I've written one full chapter on intellectual property rights, and the subheading is burst the bubble. So there is this whole hue and cry that, oh my God, India is so behind when it comes to IPRs. Look at China. They have millions of IPRs, and Indians hardly. No, the IPRs that we have, that also is of these foreign organizations, FDIs, who have come into India and taken it. Or otherwise, it's like 400, 500 of them are from IITs,
Yeah.
But we need to know that, I mean, it's very important. As part of my research, I found out that India has a very strong IPR system. Where if China has very, very high numbers, there are reasons for it. The government would give businesses subsidies for application of IPRs. So if I'm going to start a business and I'm getting free money, I will just apply. And people just started applying left, right, and center. And almost, I think, 60% of the IPRs in 2 to 3 years would just go into trash because nothing would happen out of those. But what we don't look at the outcome. We always look at how much was filed, and that takes you to like a very big number. But that's not the case. So India, if you see the whole the policies that you have behind the IPRs is very sound. But people need to be motivated, and the government needs to also give out subsidies to to small businesses and push the youth towards uh, you know either taking a copyright, trademark, patent, whatever it is, because end of the day it's your innovation, and if you don't protect it, and if you're going to just do it without protecting your innovation, then somebody else is going to do it,
Yeah.
and then you lose the game. So it's actually very important.
Was NEP also a part of your research? While
Yes.
NEP is futuristic, how does India prep its digital physical infrastructure to make learning more inclusive?
Okay, you'll have to tell me that again. Sorry.
Was NEP a part of your research? Is
Yeah.
part one. Part two is, while NEP is futuristic, how does India prep its digital or physical infrastructure to make learning more inclusive?
Okay. Yes, NEP was a part of my research. What I focused more was about our attitude towards how we look at teachers and stuff. But yeah, coming back to your question, digital and physical infrastructure. Now,
Yeah.
a very important point I want to make over here is that until before the pandemic, we were like, we need schools, we need buildings, we need
Yeah.
infrastructure, we need internet lines, etc., etc. And the government needs to invest so much of money, and like we need to do this, that. There are 90,000 schools in the country which have only a single teacher. So
Yeah.
from first to standard to fifth standard, you have just one teacher doing the teaching. So, and then comes the pandemic, which forcefully pushes you into a stage where you have to do learning from your life. So now the thing is that the money, the whole investment that you're looking at, should it go towards the physical infrastructure, or should it So by the time our physical infrastructure is done, another 10, 12 years, 15 years, and then we look at digital. I mean, whereas other countries have already started diverting all their funds towards digital. So it's more about us. We we have to catch up with what we have to learn from the best practices. We have to evaluate how things have gone during this pandemic, because maybe this whole digital learning is not as effective. We don't know. It's too early for us to say. Maybe the whole output of a person's understanding is not as great as a physical classes. So it sounds very good
Yeah.
that oh, we've gone digital, that, but no, I think we really need to wait and see how this turns out to be, what the stats are, and then decide whether it's physical or maybe a mix of both.
Right. All right. So thank you. I guess we have answered all the questions. Do
Okay.
you want to add a few like a ending line or something like?
Not really. I think I'm done with everything that I had to say, but I, I would surely urge you guys to, spread the word around, and because for me, this book is like a message that I really want the youth of this country to really read. And trust me, it is a lot of economics, it is a lot of political science, but it's in a very easy language to understand. So I'm sure that it will click in somewhere, and maybe somewhere you would probably think that okay, this is some contribution that I can do to making India Atmanirbhar.
Absolutely. So thank you for making our afternoon very meaningful. And I hope all of y'all please do, grab a book and you can tag her when you purchase your copies. And thank you so much for doing this for us.
Thanks,
And
Apurva. Thank you.
hope to connect with you soon.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.